Hey everybody, welcome back to the West Texas Rambler channel. My name is Heath, this is my shop, and today we're going to be building a camp kitchen drawer system for my wife's 2018 4Runner. And if you saw my last video, you saw the camp kitchen drawer system that I built for my 2017 Tacoma. It's going to be pretty similar, built in a similar fashion, but anyway, we'll see how it goes. I don't have any plans. I'm just building as I go, kind of like I did with my truck. But anyway, I guess we'll see how it goes. Stick around. So the first thing we need to figure out is how we're going to mount it in the car. We got a couple different options we'll take a look at. So one option that people sometimes do is they'll build the drawer system all the way out to this edge, and then they'll use, I think it's called a turnbuckle. It's got a hook on each end, a threaded rod that will twist and either pull or push those hooks apart. Anyway, they'll mount it to the one hook to the side of the box and one hook to this hook here, tighten it down, and then same thing on this side, and then even have one in the back, and that kind of just keeps everything pulled square, and you can kind of adjust them to keep it pulled tight and keep it in place where you want it. Another thing people do is they pull up this carpet, pull that up. Evidently there's some maybe mounting bolts underneath that people have used before, or there's bolts under these things. Sometimes they will take those bolts out, build a little bracket that comes out here so that they can put their plywood on top and bolt to those brackets, and the brackets being held down by that, so it's all underneath the platform and not seen. I think the turnbuckles are probably the easiest way to do it, and that may be the way that I look at trying to do it. I may pull this carpet up and see what other options I might have, but for now I think I'm just going to use the turnbuckles to these 4 little anchor points and go from there. So I just quickly pulled this carpet out, a piece of styrofoam here. Not really seeing anything underneath there to mount brackets or mount for brackets for that platform, but we do have a threaded hole here. That's where those hooks were at for the turnbuckles if I was going to go that route. And then up here, this is where those other little D-rings were mounted. There's one there, one there. I may just I'll probably put the carpet back on top of this, put the plywood on top of that, and try to find some way to use those 2 holes and maybe these 2 holes. I'm going to spend a little time trying to figure out how to make some brackets so that I can get this out here, some kind of bracket to get it out. But anyway, I just thought I'd show you all what it looked like under here. It is kind of nice. These little plugs go directly down into underneath the vehicle, so if you have wiring or something, that might be a good option. There's one there, one up there. If you have to wire something back here, I just noticed that'd be pretty handy to know. Anyway, I'll keep in touch and see how we decide to do this. Okay, so what I think I decided to do, I'm going to try and use those brackets that I showed that are underneath the carpet. I'm going to try and make some brackets to reach out to that little bolt hole, the factory bolt hole that holds that D-ring in. So let me show you what I found. So I keep all kinds of little stuff that I find different places, and I don't even know what this is, but some kind of battery tray or something that I found somewhere along the way. But I think this edge right here, I'm going to try and cut both of these sides off, and I'll drill some holes into that to make the mounting brackets to try and give me something to bolt to, so that there's no hardware outside of the drawer system. It'll all be hidden underneath. So I'm going to give that a try, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so these little brackets that I just made, They're going to go in under this plastic, and then I'm going to put that factory D-ring back over the top, put the bolt back through it, and this is where I'll actually mount my platform to. I need to make a mark here because there's some stuff in here that I need to dodge, and so I think what I'm going to do is cut up a little bit and across and make a little relief, so I just have a thin piece of metal here, because in the end I may need to twist or bend this in a way that it'll get up over the top of this carpet once I get the carpet back in underneath this plastic. I just think I'm going to have some wiggle room, and I need some kind of a relief cut there to allow me to do that. So I think that's the next step. Okay, so same thing on the passenger side. I just realized that this little plastic piece here actually comes out further down than the other side. So I'm going to have to cut that relief cut to get around that plastic. It's going to have to be a pretty deep relief cut. I kind of just etched that or scratched that in, but it may actually have to be deeper than that. So I'll probably be removing most of this part here. Anyway, we'll see what we need to do to make that fit, get those holes aligned. Alright, so you can see where I got this notch cut out to get around this piece of plastic here. Anyway, so that's going to allow me to line up the holes there, put that bolt and that D-ring back in there. So the carpet is going to go back underneath that. So I'm going to have to bend this up some, get it underneath there. So this will sit right on top of the carpet, run a bolt up through it into the plywood, put the nut on top, and that's what's going to hold this thing down up here. And then same thing on the driver's side. And then like I showed before, those D-rings that are up front, they have kind of a lifted bracket with a threaded hole in it, and I'm just going to match a hole in the plywood for that and just put a bolt in it. Okay, so I just went out and measured the area that I'm going to be able to have the base sit at the very bottom of a whole drawer system that's going to actually be bolted down to those brackets and those threaded holes that I was showing earlier. I just cut a piece of plywood, 1/2-inch plywood. I just got it cut to size, and now the next step is to line up those holes so I know where to punch holes in this plywood to make everything line up. Like I said, just 1/2-inch plywood. It's all going to be painted or covered in carpet, so I'm not too worried about the quality or what it looks like. But anyway, nothing fancy. But we're going to go and see if we can get these holes to line up for the base so we can get it secured to the floor. I just wanted to show how these were going to go and install. So there's a piece of plastic that comes part of the way up here. That's what this relief cut is for. But if you pull it up, kind of fish it back in there, this hole where this D-ring came out of, I can put it like that, put the bolt back in it, and I can kind of bend and twist this to get it flat. That way, whenever the plywood comes on top, there's a spot to bolt to right here. I'll be doing the same thing on this side. Okay, so as far as trying to get these holes to line up, the plywood holes to line up with the holes here, I just took a bolt, a little short bolt, and stuck through that bracket on all 4 sides. Those are the 2 up front, and then back here in the back, we got a little bolt, the original bolt sticking up out there. Same thing there. I'm going to lay the plywood down on top of it, use a hammer to tap, and hopefully that the imprint of those bolts will transfer to the plywood. Just drill from the back side of the plywood to get all the holes to line up. So that's the plan. We're going to see how it works. So I just got this back in there in the shop, and I was going to show that method of transferring the holes. Did a pretty good job. So that's the hex head of the bolt in the back. You can see the other one right there. Then the little bolts that I had up front, they left a good little imprint there. And There's another one there. That one's a little harder to see, but right there. So I got some holes drilled, all 4 of them. They're countersunk. Didn't necessarily have to countersink the front two, but they go towards the front of the vehicle because there's not going to be a drawer going over them. But I did countersink the ones up front, so as the drawer slides in and out, that doesn't interfere. So let's go test it and make sure it all fits. Are you helping? So to put this together, that bracket that has the bolt coming through it, you got a washer on top. Go ahead and start this nut on the top side, and so that nut, that bolt that comes to the bottom, obviously could just spin on the bottom, but there's just enough room to get a wrench under to hold it. Hey.
You have so much help today.
Now tighten that down. So that bracket's now tightened to the floor. The bracket that comes from here is now tightened to the base of what's going to be the drawer system. It's all countersunk, nice and flush. Anyway, got all 4 of them put in, and should be good and secure. Shouldn't be going anywhere. So now that we've got it where it fits in the 4Runner and all the holes line up to where it's going to be mounted and bolted down, got that all lined out. So now I spent the last few minutes drawing out some plans of how we want it with the fridge, stove, and some extra drawers. And by a few extra minutes, I mean like 3 hours. But anyway, so I spent some time, figured out how we want to lay it out. We've got the stove in here, we got the fridge in here, and we're gonna start making some of these drawers and some of these slides, and see how it all goes together. So we'll get started on that. So for the stove slide, I've got some of this. It's called Alu panel. It's kind of a composite aluminum plasticky stuff. I think what it is a plastic core with some aluminum sheeting, I guess, on top and bottom. Anyway, I'm going to use that under the stove. So I'm going to go ahead and get that cut to size for the stove. And it'll have some drawer slides underneath it. And go ahead and get those mounted up. And then we're going to build everything else kind of around that. So we're going to get this cut and move on to the next spot. So this is the platform the stove is going to sit on. The slides are underneath it, so as it starts to come out, you can see there the slides come out from underneath it there. This will all fit inside of a box that the fridge will sit on top of that box. It'll make a little more sense as we go, but anyway, just wanted to show you that. I put screws through it from the bottom. I'm just going to cut those screws off and sand them down flush, and the stove will be sitting on that most of the time, so don't have to worry about that being a problem. But anyway, just wanted to show you that and show you how that was going to work. Okay, so this is how this is going to be set up with the slide and the stove. Next, we're going to build a box that's going to go completely around this stove, and this is all going to slide out as a unit. And then once that's out, then this will slide just the stove. The fridge sitting on top of it will slide out one length, and then the stove will come out from underneath the fridge is what we're shooting for. So the next step is build a box all the way around to enclose this and allow the fridge to sit on top of that. So this is the box that I was talking about that the fridge is going to sit on, and this is where the stove is going to sit. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to be bolting or screwing these slides down to this before I put the top on it, because once I get the top on it, there won't be any room to do any of that. But anyway, so this is just going to slide out, slide back in with the stove, with the fridge sitting on top of that. Okay, so I know I just put this slide on there, but I took it back off so that we could paint all this. I wasn't really thinking about that at the time, but we're going to paint all this before we put it all together, just be easier that way. Then we'll get the slide put back on and go from there. Hopefully it'll make a little more sense if it's not making sense yet, but I hope that you stick around for the other parts, see how it turns out. Hopefully that part will go pretty quick now that we've kind of got started on the process and have some drawings and plans to go for. We're gonna get ready for bed because this one right here is getting sleepy, and you gonna finish this with me? Anyway, we're gonna go get ready for bed. It's getting late, and anyway, we just wanted to say thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. And don't forget to keep on rambling.